Welcome to Helping Leaders Achieve What Matters. I have a special guest with me today, and his name is Cujo, and I'm going to just share my screen for a second here and tell you a little bit about him before I let him talk. So he was the commander of one of America's only frontline operational F-22 squadrons. He was an F-15 Eagle instructor at the prestigious U.S. Air Force Weapons School, which is the Air Force's top gun program. He's the author or co-author of 3 best-selling books. One of them is Debrief the Win, which he's going to talk to us about today. And for Vistage, he was the 2022 top performer, the Speaker of the Year for Vistage last year, the 2021 top performer, 2021 star performer, 2020 top performer. Please help me welcome Cujo to the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you so much. That's probably the nicest introduction that anybody's ever given me for any of the podcasts that I've done. That was brilliant. I'm impressed.
Oh, thank you. I've been reading up on you and studying you. I'm so excited to finally be able to talk to you and that you're coming to New York City in a couple of weeks. You wrote this book, and the title of your workshop is Debrief the Win. And I'm sure we all have different interpretations what debrief means. What does that mean for our audience, which is mostly CEOs and key executives of small to medium-sized businesses?
Great question. And the way that we can summarize this easiest is to say the debrief is the place we go as a team to learn en route to making the next iteration of whatever it is that we're doing go that much better. So the concentration for us as leaders is on figuring out how do we turn our organizations into learning organizations to be able to handle the never-ending disruptions that we're up against.
Got it. Now, I mean, Vistage is all about learning. I've been involved. In fact, I joined Vistage in 1995, which is when I think you graduated from your academy. So I've been
That's
doing
right.
this for a long, long time. But we're all about learning. I mean, and people come from diverse companies. We're not all the same companies. We're not a team like in the sense that you had a team, but we all have the same, I guess, shared objective, which is learning to become better leaders. How can we apply like the principles of what you talk about of accountability, of vulnerability, of creating a psychological safe space as Vistage chairs and members in our meetings?
Yeah, so there's the obvious answer. We can treat our Vistage members and that entire organization that you have that comes together every month as a team, and we can work on executing teaming principles to help make those missions, those weekly meetings or those monthly meetings that you have, as good as they can be to help those members learn. The second phase of this is the part that I think is probably most interesting, and that is how do we then turn around and create that exact same experience in the companies? I mean, your members want to create teams, multiple teams, because they've got, assuming that they're not solo entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
they've got multiple teams that are helping them to execute mission success in whatever it is that they do. How do I turn those teams then into learning organizations that can consistently improve upon how it is that they do what they do to the benefit of the collective whole, the team of teams? And I think it starts with understanding the principles, in your case, in a Vistage meeting, and treating our fellow members in a Vistage environment as if we were a team of learners that has the constant mission of helping us to advance our company's goals. And that's probably the best way to do it. And one of the things that's really amazing to me about the Vistage experience is how well you build the psychological safety that allows your members to come in and be vulnerable. And I think for our audience today, one of the things that they probably want to understand is what is psychological safety. And this is something that I ask everywhere that I go. And I'm stunned by the fact that in the year 2023, so few people know what the answer is. And so we'll turn to the work of Dr. Timothy Clark. He's always on LinkedIn posting about psychological safety. He wrote The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. I'm a fan of both his and Dr. Amy Edmondson's. Dr. Clark says that psychological safety is an environment of rewarded vulnerability.
Mm.
And if we think about what it takes to create a learning organization, for sure, every one of the folks that's tuning into this particular session today would agree that if you want to learn, you got to be vulnerable. You got to be able to be free to speak openly about your mistakes, your weaknesses, in order to build from that and to create a better tomorrow. Question is, do we feel safe to be ourselves in a given environment? And in a Vistage session, typically the answer is yes. Back home in the company, depending on who you are, the answer is often no, and that causes problems. And it
Yes.
specifically causes problems when we're trying to both learn and create an environment where we can practice meaningful and effective accountability. Accountability demands vulnerability, and so you see how all of these things are tied together.
Yeah, it's interesting because I ask my CEOs, what is their number one challenge when it comes to their key executives? And their answer almost always is holding them accountable. Now, one of the groups you're going to speak to is a key executive group, which is a Vistage group designed for like COOs and CMOs and VPs of business development and the number twos. And I ask them, what's your biggest frustration with your CEO? And they'll typically say, lack of clarity. They keep on changing what they want. What do you see from those two different answers?
Yeah, I see a common frustration, and it's shared across the board. You typically have the big visionary sitting at the top of the organization who is constantly reassessing what it is that's happening in the battlefield that we know as business, and potentially as a consequence of those reassessments is shifting the goalposts around, causing a real difficulty for the rest of the members of the organization to keep up, first of all, and secondly, be able to meet the shifting goalpost standard. And so accountability goes to zero in that case. And we have to acknowledge that. I mean, part of our role as chief executives, as the principals that are running the organization, is to lead slow enough for the rest of the organization to keep up, to equip people with the ability to achieve success as we've collectively defined it, and to recognize that if we can't do it, we may, and indeed most often probably are, complicit. Right. So that's a necessary precondition to success when it comes to accountability, figuring out where it is that we're culpable in the team's inability to meet the standards of success that we've set. And I mean, basic blocking and tackling to include defining what success looks like is largely absent too often. And that just creates cascading ripple effects of frustration across the organization. Well-intentioned people in an environment where there's so many other opportunities available to them right now probably aren't inclined to stay in an organization with shifting goalposts, with lack of clarity of expectations. And so we have to be very conscientious of that right now, to be able to retain the talent that we're privileged to lead, and to be a net attractor of the talent that's out there on the prowl for better opportunities.
Yes, yes. Now, one of the challenges I think some CEOs have shared with me is, having that clarity themselves. And I heard you talk about something called commander's intent. What is that?
Yeah, great question. It is we'll call it an ancient Prussian army principle, stemming from, say, the mid 1800s, when the Prussian army created a concept called Auftragstaktik, which was a revisit of the whole command and control style of leadership. At a time when pretty much every military on the planet was organized with the generals at the headquarters have to make all the decisions, approve every sort of maneuver. You have an idea at the front line, you got to run it back to headquarters and get an okay or not. The Prussians said there are more nimble actors appearing on the stage. We got to find a way to be more nimble than them. And so they created this concept that was translated into English as mission style orders, or mission command, which says we need centralized command, decentralized execution. Controversial approach, by the way, to say you're equipped at the front lines to make decisions at your own level. But the Prussians complemented mission command with a concept called commander's intent that says we're gonna give you what you need in order to make a high quality decision at your level to advance the collective cause. And what commander's intent is, it's three things. It's a one paragraph summary of the team's expanded purpose, the key tasks that need to be accomplished, and the end state that we're trying to achieve. Purpose, key tasks, and end state, offered in a way that anybody can memorize it. And the idea was that if you're in the front lines and you understand commander's intent, then you can make decisions to help advance it. Brilliant concept. And clarity of expectations is also a brilliant concept. Part of the notion that makes commander's intent and mission command so compelling is we trust you to make a decision at your level, as long as we've given you clarity of what we're trying to achieve, and that trust is returned in terms of employee engagement, buy-in, and performance. So we go back to Gallup. It has its thumb on the pulse of what's happening in the world of business. Gallup says that employees are slightly more engaged today than they were a few months ago. So Gallup, as of a couple of Tuesdays ago, says that 23% of employees are thriving at work, fully engaged, which, if that's an improvement, is still a shockingly horrible statistic. Okay, so 23% of employees are thriving at work. When you look at what Gallup says engagement means, it means having clarity of expectations, an environment where our opinions count, and opportunities for development. So this is what employees seek: clarity of expectations. We're providing clarity of expectations by way of commander's intent, driving that engagement and buy-in, and trying to move past the current horrible status quo of 23%. And I think that's a big takeaway for us, that the idea that the fundamentals of teaming can help us to drive buy-in, engagement, enthusiasm, performance, to get people to give their heart in the conduct of what it is that they do. That's important right now, especially.
Yes, yeah, it's so critical. I mean, we have several challenges going on that I see with my members right now. One is attracting talent that they want, and the other is that they're having talent that they like being poached away. And what I'm hearing you say from this is that a lot of that has to do with people not being engaged, maybe from a lack of clarity. What else does that mean?
Well, I mean, it means that really we're probably not leading as effectively as we need to for the now. And one of the things about leadership that I've noted, and I've studied leadership for the entirety of my professional life, really since I was 17 years old as a freshman at the United States Air Force Academy. And a takeaway that I picked up early on is that leadership not only is not static, part of the challenge is adapting our leadership styles to the needs of the present. I mean, there's always a different environment within which we're leading. Sometimes things are easy, sometimes things are hard, sometimes people's needs are more, sometimes people's needs are less. We have to be conscientious of all of this and adjust the leadership style accordingly in order to meet the demands of the now. In fact, one of the movies that we used to watch in the United States Air Force at the Academy during basic training, various stages throughout my development, World War II era movie about Bomber Command. Oh my gosh! And now Gregory
12
Peck,
o'clock high?
12 o'clock high, 12 o'clock high. It's the imperative of situational leadership. And so one of the challenges is making sure that we're adapting our leadership style effectively to be able to retain talent right now, because we've poured too much into those people that we're depending on right now for them to walk. And the amount of time that it takes for us to be able to go out there, find somebody that might be suitable, get them hired, and then train them, divorces us from doing all of the other things that we need to be doing right now. And so it's on us to make sure that we keep, that we don't lose. And the fundamentals of leadership, I think, boil down to mission basics that we talk about all the time, but don't execute very well on. For example, hey, we need to be more accountable, we say. Then we don't change anything. And we say, hey team, I want everybody here to be more accountable. I want you to be held to account for X, Y, or Z, but we don't change anything about how it is that we're organized and to practice accountability. And most people run from accountability because all they see is that it's a weapon.
Yeah, and that's I think what a fear that I've heard leaders say to me is I'm afraid to hold somebody accountable because then they could quit, and then I'm even in worse shape. So
That's right.
tell us
Because
more about that.
if you think about it, where did we learn how to practice accountability? And the typical, if you really think, because most of us haven't gone through any course to teach us how to practice accountability. We just do what it is that we were taught when we were kids. And what we were taught when we were kids, if the outcome isn't good, then something's got to be fixed. And our parents said, fix it. And we took that approach, we applied it to literally everything that we do, to include running our businesses. If the outcome isn't what we said that we wanted it to be, team, you better go out there and fix this. And if we don't fix it fast, somebody's going to be fired. And so most folks don't see accountability as oh, I can't wait for this thing. They see it as oh boy, I hope we can make it through this accountability session and then kind of, on the back end, breathe again. And I hope nothing bad happens here. And usually we only practice accountability after a failure. And that really perpetuates the notion that accountability is something that we must run from, because if accountability only follows a failure, what's going to be the outcome? Somebody's going to be blamed. Somebody's going to be shamed. And the sad thing is that there's a much better way. In the high performance team world, we see accountability as the place that we go to learn. And we see failure as the thing that we can learn the most from. And so we're going to find ways to fail often in a safe to fail environment to equip us to be able to win when everything really matters. And that's a luxury that we might have. We spend a lot of time in military organizations and training. In the business world, we argue there's no time to train. It's all do, and there it is. We justify our lack of performance with the urgency of the time constraints and the demands of time. Problem is, we also don't have time to redo shoddily done work. We also don't have time to lose the thing that we could have won if we put some rigor into the planning for it. We don't have time to deal with the repercussions of execution that was done poorly. We also don't have the time to lose people along the way. So the very simple approach is we need to figure out how to harness accountability done the right way, ritualized accountability that follows every mission that we execute en route to helping us to learn from mission to mission, driving buy-in, engagement, and performance. And it's a very achievable goal. And part of the achievement is getting rid of the meetings that waste our time and replacing them with meetings that are useful to the team. And I think you might agree with me, Mark, that so many of the meetings that we waste our time in each week aren't helping advance the cause at all. And you can almost do a one-for-one swap. Get rid of a meaningless meeting, replace it with a meeting where we plan to win. Get rid of another meaningless meeting, replace it with a meeting where we're assessing, did we win as big as we thought we were going to? And if not, what are we going to learn from it? If we did, how are we going to scale that forward so that the next iteration goes better? That's a recipe for success. And the other interesting thing is that very few organizations do that. So if you want to stand out in a sea of average teams, maybe follow some of the high performance team principles that allow high performing teams to be as good as they are, in order to highlight yourself to those who are looking for a better opportunity. What a great approach that might be.
Yes, yes. I heard you say one thing that made me think about the training. Where do we get trained as leaders? And really, that's how I look at Vistage, as like an opportunity to practice in a safe space. So if we can
Yes.
learn to practice this accountability, because it still seems to me like, as I'm the Vistage chair, I'm the father figure, I'm the boss figure, that I have to hold people accountable, and I don't want that role. And what am I going to do? I mean, in one aspect, they're my members. They're paying to be a part of this organization. So what am I going to say? Oh, you showed up 10 minutes late to the meeting. We have a behavior standard of showing up on time. That's not going to work. And then they might quit. So what advice would you give a Vistage chair like myself?
Well, first of all, you're exactly right. I mean, I have been now in Vistage for, I mean, really, it was 2019 that was my full year. I did a couple, like 2 events in December of 2018. So since 2019, I've been in the Vistage world. What I've seen across the board, Vistage and tech across North America, is that this is a brilliant place for leaders to go learn. It's a brilliant place for leaders to get training. You bring in folks from all kinds of different backgrounds and disciplines to teach what it is that they know. You're constantly helping your members to be able to learn and grow. It's a brilliant structure. At the point where I retire, and I delayed my Vistage retirement just a little bit as a result of the recent award, I'm going to be a member, yeah, here in St. Louis, which is where I call home, because I see the tremendous value that's gained from it. So you're spot on. Now the question is, are folks taking that and doing a similar training for their up and coming leaders in their organizations? And that's one of the first disconnects is that oftentimes within the company, we're promoting people that are technical experts, but still don't know how to lead. And so they don't lead very well. It's not their fault. And then folks beneath them leave because they say this person isn't somebody that I would ever follow anywhere. And so that's a challenge. So we've got to find a way to invest in that company leadership development. The other piece about this is that not every problem is a debriefable incident. And this is something that's an important takeaway. So in a fighter squadron, we have a list of standards. We have administrative standards, we have tactical standards. Our administrative standards contain very simple things like if in order to be on time, everybody in our organization will show up 5 minutes early. And if you break one of our administrative standards, it's simply just a fine, $5 to the kitty. No questions asked. Nobody cares why it was that you were only 4 minutes early. You're inside of the standard, you owe $5 to the pot. At some point, we're going to have a party courtesy of, the numbers of $5. And hopefully we don't have a party for a while. And hopefully it's a pretty poor party because there really wasn't that much money in the kitty. Those are the kinds of things that we might do for the simple infractions. Whereas the larger issues, are we meeting the expectations of our members? Those are the kinds of conversations that would warrant getting together in an accountability structure that we use on a regular basis to assess, are we doing what it is that we've set out to do? And that's a very simple approach. We've got rigor and methodology. That's one of the things that we're going to be talking about in the sessions we do in beautiful New York City. Yeah, rigor and methodology. Then we've got ritualization. This is an all the time thing. Every so often we're going to assess, are we executing on the plan that we set to meet the expectations that we've set for ourselves? If yes, good. How do we perpetuate that? If no, then what's the origin story? What's the root cause of that so that we can correct it? We can create a better way forward. And I went to a Vistage session. It was an afternoon session once, a number of years ago. And the chair was on fire with the approach, was really taken by this idea of debrief and said, hey, Cujo, could you stick around for a couple of extra minutes? Because I'd like to debrief today with my members. I said, all right, sure, I'd be happy to. And so he asked his members, he said, hey, how did today go? And to a person, and there were about 13 or so in the room, all CEOs, they said today was an extraordinary day. We had a brilliant morning. We solved a major issue. That was such a win. We had a decent speaker this afternoon. Today was a brilliant day. That was the assessment by everybody. And then the chair pushed, said, hey, look, I think we need to dig deeper. I think we need more here. Come on, give me something with teeth. Tell us where we went wrong. And so now the folks are starting to reevaluate, like, was today actually as good as we thought it was? And one of the members steps in and says, hey, actually, I've got an idea. I have a thought. Today could have been so much better if we had done this thing. And instantly two people go, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yes, that would have made today so much better. So if you think about this, just take a step back. One could argue, hey, we're learning here, right? Come up with a new idea. This is going to make the next one better. But what I saw from my vantage point was maybe 9, 10 other people who were looking kind of confused. Two seconds ago, we were happy with today. Now you're telling us that today wasn't as good as it could have been. And I stopped them right there. I said, okay, pause right here. When did you set the standard against which you're measuring success or failure? And to the CEO's credit, she said about 15 seconds ago. I said, okay, good job identifying that. So what's the likelihood of you achieving mission success for the thing that you just set the standard on after the day was done? And she came back and said 0% chance, right? Because the standard, you're shifted, like bingo. So though we tell ourselves the narrative that we just learned something, actually we just frustrated the heck out of everybody, especially the chair who's saying, well, okay, so moving target applies over here in Vistage apparently as well. We're going to define what the right day looks like after the day is done. That's a bad approach. And it doesn't build confidence in our ability to consistently improve. What it basically says is, hey, we don't know what the standard's eventually going to be. Guarantee you we're never going to be able to meet it because it's going to shift after we're done. And I want off of this ship.
Yes.
Long-winded rant to say there's a lot that we can take away from this to include in a Vistage session. And part of it is making sure that we're clear on expectations up front, not after we finish the day.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Now, what do you do if you're leading a session and there's differences of opinion, as what often happens? And the value of this is you get different perspectives and difference of opinion. But with New York CEOs, there are some rumors to the identity that we have as New Yorkers. I mean, they're tough. They're in their face. They're not afraid to tell you what they're really thinking. But you have these two different sides here. Then what do I do as the leader? Like, how do we resolve those types of differences? That must happen in the Air Force, right?
It does, and yet part of the antidote there is making sure that what we define as expectations are measurable, achievable, and time constrained. Oftentimes, what we say is the expectation is too fuzzy to serve us.
Yes.
Hey, I want this to be the best meeting ever.
Yes.
Wonderful, except that how can you measure that? And the answer is you can't. So that is a completely useless expectation, best meeting ever. It's totally subjective. Everybody's going to have their own subjective opinion on this thing. And you're going to have some that love it and some that hate it. And it's just going to be unsatisfying to you. Measurable, achievable, and time constrained is the way that we set ourselves up to learn. So in a mission orientation, every time that we went out there and flew a mission, we had measurable, achievable, time constrained objectives. We need to get 100% bombs on time, on target, no losses. We can measure that. We can achieve that. It's time bound. It really works. And so at the end of that thing, we can come back and say, did we or did we not achieve success? Now, the other piece of this is there are a lot of factors that go into our ability to achieve success, to include luck. And we have to acknowledge that. Sometimes we get lucky. Sometimes we're really unlucky. So we have to balance achieving objectives with focusing on those things that we can control, which is the quality of our decisions and associated actions. And we'll spend time in our sessions unpacking how it is that we can make high quality decisions, take appropriate actions, and still lose, how it is that we can make bad decisions, take inappropriate actions, and still win, and how it is we navigate that. But what sets us up for the conversation is the quality of the objective. And part of what it is that we want to be really rigorous on in a Vistage session is defining clearly how it is that we're going to measure success based off of measurable, achievable, and time constraint. And if we can do that, now we minimize the degree of uncertainty, the fuzziness of the rating scale, and with those quantifiables, we can help advance your mission as a Vistage chair of having satisfied Vistage members who feel that every month is a huge advancement on their ability to lead and team effectively.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that that's such a valuable lesson, and that's what every single business owner and leader needs to do, is come up with metrics for each of their people so that they know whether or not they're succeeding or not.
Well, here's another one, if I may, tied to that. One of the things that I've noticed amongst Vistage members is there's this leadership component that says, let me dangle a carrot in front of you to help you to achieve what it is that you're capable of. And we see it applied in Vistage sessions all the time. Hey, at the end of the day, I'm going to rate the day on a 10-point scale an 8, because I always believe that there's room for improvement.
Yeah, I love that.
And if you think about it, wait a second, how unsatisfying is it to know that you can never achieve the top score around here? I mean, one of the things that I really enjoyed as a young fighter pilot was knowing exactly what the standard was and knowing that I could achieve it, knowing that I wouldn't always achieve it, but on those times when I could, feeling the joy, the satisfaction of having dominated on something that's so complex. And we even go so far as to say, today the expectation is that you earn, say, an 8 out of 10. Today the expectation, because of where you are in your development scale, an 8 out of 10 is a passing or an acceptable grade. But then to come back after the mission is done and to get a 10 out of 10, you know that you're not perfect. You know that you've never flown and never will fly a perfect mission, but have your evaluator come back and give you a 10 out of 10 with still suggestions on how you could improve on this. That was incredibly meaningful. And you know that you're still in the process of evolving into, and that process never ends, by the way, throughout the entirety of your career, the best that you can be. There's a tremendous amount of out of satisfaction of knowing that you exceeded the standard for the day. And how often do we get into that in the Vistage world? And one of the things that I think we have to push back against is, especially in the now, at a time when people have choices, at a time when they're so disengaged, when they're using the company's internet to figure out where they might go next, is trying to help somebody to achieve what it is that they're capable of, providing them a roadmap to achieving it, knowing that we're so attuned to being constructively criticized that this could be a game changer. And constructive criticism, I mean, it is working against what it is that we think. When we say, I'm here to help you get better, so I'm going to constructively criticize you. It's coming from the heart, and it's the way that I was trained. And so, Mark, with this constructive criticism, you're going to be better equipped to win tomorrow. What you come away with is, Cujo's a jerk. All that he does is criticize, and I want out.
Yes. Yeah. So the alternative is?
Here's what the standard is. Let me help you to achieve the standard. Let's constantly revisit, as we're going through your performance, how it is that you're doing, because I want you to win. And at the end of our rating time, I want you to get the 10 out of 10. And when you do, we're both going to celebrate this thing. We're going to make a big deal about the fact that you met or exceeded standards. And then the next time around, we're going to set a higher bar because you're capable of so much more. And I want to have this exact same celebration this time next year when you knock it out of the park once again. And I'm here with you, my friend, along on this journey. I'm here to help you, to mentor, to coach you. We're going to use our debriefs to help you to learn so that you can achieve what it is that you're capable of. I want you sitting in my seat someday.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I also heard you say that the debrief, you not only talk about the failure, but you also talk about what goes right. Could you say more about that?
It stunned me. It stunned me early on in my Vistage journey. I was walking out of one of the very first Vistage sessions that I ever led, and I was walking out with the CEO whose facility we're in. He was on his way to go try and win a client. I was on my way back home. And as we were walking out into the parking lot, he said, Cujo, I just want you to know, I've been very successful. As I recall, the company was a $500 million revenue company, so nothing to shake a stick at. And he said, I've literally never in all my years since I created this thing from scratch ever debriefed a win. He said, so I'm going to give it a shot. If we win this contract, I'm going to sit down with the team and we're going to debrief it. And I said, well, if you would please, because I'm new at this, let me know how it goes. And I gave him my text number, my cell phone number. He texted me all weekend long. They won the contract. They sat down as a team to dissect why they won, to institutionalize it. They created a new standard, a new operating standard for how it is they're going to go out there and duplicate the success. He was so jazzed by it. He was, for the first several years of this journey, the largest single consumer of Debrief to Win, bought so many books and gave them to anybody that came into his building, which was pretty telling to me. And I've heard that story echoed multiple times. In fact, it's a consistent message, Cujo. Not only do we not debrief our wins, we're increasingly in fear of debriefing our failures out of fear of losing somebody. In the high performance team world, accountability is a ritual. It's an all the time thing. The mission's not done until we've learned from it. It has to be. Because some of the time we win due to luck. And we have to acknowledge that, and we have to guard against it, because luck isn't a strategy to go out there and win the next mission. But more importantly, and this is the thing that ties to leadership in today's world, we need to acknowledge the people that are helping us to go out there and win. We have to identify them based upon a fact-based analysis as the heroes that are helping us advance our missions and achieve mission success in a really disruptive world. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care if you're printing money right now. You owe it to your teammates to recognize them for doing their part, so that when the going's not so easy, they still are giving you their heart. They're still committed to what it is that you're doing when it's harder to win. The human side says we need to acknowledge people and the good that they're doing in a fact-based way, not the employee of the month. Hey, it's been 3 months since you've won something around here, so here's your token award. Yay, here's the cake. Yay. And then we go back to business. It's got to be based on fact. Debrief is a fact-based analysis of why it was that we succeeded, so that we have increased confidence in our ability to move forward and keep on winning, and the heroics are identified and celebrated in a very, very human way. And I've had interesting experiences in my journey teaching this. I've had a CEO specifically said, I don't waste my time doing that. I give people great pay and benefits. That's their reward for winning. In business, we expect to win. So why would I waste my time? Like, well, frankly, I'm glad that I don't work in your company, was what was going on my side, and what an inhuman approach to leadership. And you wonder why people are disengaged. Actually, in the Gallup article from a couple of weeks ago, they said fully 59% of the global workforce is quiet quitting, 18% is loud quitting. And loud quitting is defined as taking active measures to harm the company that people are in.
That's scary.
Unfathomable, very scary, interesting coming from Gallup, which has a good track record of identifying what's going on in the business world. But when you work for leaders who treat people as cogs in a wheel of output, it's not surprising that they wouldn't be too inflamed with enthusiasm for coming back to work the next day.
Yeah.
We need to be more human in our teaming approaches at work, I'd say.
It's interesting because somehow my image of the military and Top Gun and Cujo would be not to be vulnerable, not to be more human, as the secrets to success. So
look, I love both Top Gun movies. Okay, in fact, we just celebrated a birthday here at Team Teschner, and the movie request was the original Top Gun from one of my littles, and so I got a chance to watch it for the 7,000th time. And I will say that there's so much good about both films, but the way that they only focus on the pilots, they don't talk about any of the rest of the team that helps make the mission a success. That's unfortunate. And the way that they depict the pilots as a bunch of super arrogant, have nothing to do with each other, just highlighting each other's deficiencies and who's the best. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Not when your job is to bring a bunch of people into harm's way to go do something so shockingly dangerous day in and day out. Like, if you want to lead through fear, good luck. You got to find a way to connect with the heart. You got to find a way to inspire people to want to try again after a massive failure. You got to find a way to be very human in an environment where you're going to lose somebody along the way. And yet the expectation is, we just lost a dear team member, friend, brother, sister in arms, but we still have a mission to go do again tomorrow. I mean, how do you do that? Is it just with the, hey, here's the carrot dangling in front of you? Is it with the fear-based approach of you better otherwise? And I would argue that no, that's not the strongest play. And so where do I see real humanness? In the tactical fighter squadrons, where we become a family, where we bond and work together daily to be our very best. And I think if we could be more that way in American small and medium-sized businesses, we're onto a wonderfully winning strategy for success.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I think I got out of both of the Top Gun movies that's what happened, is they became, well, Tom Cruise became human. And
yeah, and if you the second movie, here's a moment of vulnerability for you. There's a scene in that thing that actually moves me to tears. And the reason that it does is because I understand the significance. Yeah, it's Hollywood. Yeah, it's fake. But were it to be real, when you got somebody that's willing to give essentially his life away to make sure that his teammates will come back from a mission that's almost impossible. He's been grounded. Spoiler alert, he's not allowed to do his job anymore, spoiler alert, and yet he goes out there and does it just to show that it can be done, to inspire his teammates to give it their all and to come back alive. I mean, there is no greater gift than putting it all out there. And so that's a beautiful thing. And the way that the team bonds because of that and what they do and how they perform as a consequence of that, yeah, fictional, Hollywood, etc. But there's something to it that we could probably all learn from and
Yes.
try to get more of in the business teams that we're privileged to lead.
Yes. So would that be a good homework assignment? Tell everyone to watch both Top Guns before you come
Absolutely.
to
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll follow through with the same homework assignment too, because don't tell anybody. I really enjoy both Top Gun movies, even as an Air Force fighter pilot.
Well, this has been great. I can't wait to see you. Is there anything else you would like to say before we conclude?
Look, there's a reason why I'm so passionate about serving in Vistage, and it's that your members are the backbone of our economy.
Yes.
American small and medium-sized businesses, backbone of our economy. Got to have a strong economy in order to have everything else function, to include being able to afford a strong defense. And so it's actually what we consider at VMAX Group an honor to come out and to deliver our workshops to your members. And I personally look very much forward to meeting you in person and to doing this with all of your awesome business leaders. It's going to be fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, we're honored to have you coming. So,
thank you very, very much.
welcome. This has been Helping Leaders Achieve What Matters with Cujo. Thank you.
Thank you.